Welcome to another edition of the Walking Bucket. I'm Michael Waterloo, and I am really excited about this edition today. Joining me is Campbell Burke, who not only recently graduated with her MBA in Sport and Entertainment Management, but also did a big capstone project and a research paper. I'm so excited I can't even say it. And a big research paper on intentionality in women's sports marketing, analyzing Nike's So Win campaign. Campbell, thanks so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you about this.
Absolutely, me too. And to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit here, Campbell and I were in the same Discord, big women's sports one. It's super active on Blue Sky. So he's going to talk about the project and everything behind it, but kind of put out a big survey around it. And I was one of the people who took it. I think, if my memory recalls, there were 117 people who took the survey right around there. So I was one of them. Very excited to see the results and seeing it come to fruition. So I guess we'll just get started. Campbell, can you take me through the idea behind your project and what made you want to do this?
Yeah, so this project actually came to me back in November in a little bit of a different way. So I saw the campaign that Nike did for the NWSL Championship that said, not here to inspire dreams, here to live mine. And it was like a bunch of billboards that they posted up in Kansas City around the championship. And that was kind of the first time I had ever seen women's sports marketing talking about success. And rather than I feel like we hear all the time about female athletes being so inspirational to little girls, and I was just like so tired of that because I'm 25. I don't need to be inspired, but I do love women's sports. And so that was kind of the inspiration. And then throughout the process, I worked really closely with my advisor to kind of narrow down that scope and that focus. And she actually used to work for Nike, so she was like, "Well, what about their Super Bowl campaign? That was such a big deal. It's their first one in 27 years, and it was just really cool to see. And so that's kind of how we narrowed it down to essentially do a case study of that particular campaign because it was so comprehensive. It wasn't just the Super Bowl ad; there was more to it as well.
And I think everybody kind of remembers seeing that for the first time. There was a lot of conversation on it around line, but I want to know what your first reaction was whenever you saw the "You Can't Win, So Win" campaign.
I had a few of my friends over to watch the Super Bowl, and we did not care about any of the teams involved. So we were just mostly watching the commercials and eating good food. And we were watching, and then it started, and we all kind of stopped mid conversation and were just fixated on the TV. And it was over, and I was like, "Oh my God, that was so cool." I loved it from the jump. I had many people texting me being like, "Oh my God, did you see that Nike campaign commercial?" And I was like, "Obviously, yes. Let's talk about it forever because it was so cool." And I loved how, it was essentially calling out the way people have double standards for female athletes and women in general in a lot of ways. And I just love to see so many of them in one space, in one commercial, just being highlighted for the things that they have done in their sports.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen some commercials over the past few years. I think the State Farm one I think of where it's Sue Bird, Asian Sabrina all jamming in the back of the car and all that, like nice and fun, the rental car ones. But there was really, really something powerful about this one. But of course, there's the irony of the message getting lost on a lot of people and frankly the people you would expect to get it lost on saying you can't win so win that doesn't make sense to me. So was your reaction the same as mine? That's exactly why.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think I saw that a little bit in the survey too. I had people being like, "Well, I don't get it," and I'm like, "Good, then think about it a little harder because you're not if you don't get it, you're not trying hard enough to understand it." And that even I kind of had to explain it to my mom, and she loves women's sports because I love women's sports, and just like, well, it just doesn't make sense. And I was like, but think about it. Think about all the pressure that all of these athletes have on them all the time, and all these different things that they have to do, and how often they're told no, but they're still expected to win. And I think I brought up the U.S. Women's National Team, equal pay lawsuit as the final kicker to help people really understand. They've won 4 World Cups, and they were still fighting to make the same amount of money as the men who have won zero.
Yep. And all this stuff you're touching on, you get into in your final report, and to be honest, I read it twice. It was so good. I also want to prepare, make sure I was ready to go. But yeah, you talk about that. I think from the time they filed suit, it took 4 or 5 years for it actually to like come out and like them to kind of adjust that, not only with the men winning 0 World Cups through that and the women winning their fourth, but you also talk about a lot of different brands and just kind of like the rise and the investment in women's sports throughout it. So before we get to which brands are doing it well, because we're going to get to that, I want to ask, I want to raise another point that you bring up in there, and that is about mass presenting athletes. As there are more and more putting women at the forefront, doing a lot, like brands are kind of doing a lot better job at that. I can't help but think of the Skims campaign last year. We saw
Mhm.
a lot of different people out there like partnering with Kim Kardashian's brand, whatever you think about that. There's Cameron Brink, there's Kelsey Plum, there's a lot of people in the Skims campaign, but there's no mask presenting athlete there. So is that something you see improving as time goes on? And what kind of brands are doing a good job with that right now,
I wish
if
I had
any?
like I wish I had an answer. Like I wish I could just name off like five brands off the top of my head that are doing a good job, but I can't because there isn't anyone that's doing a great job of that, in my opinion. And I think like that also goes along with the openly queer athletes. If you look at the Can't Win or So Win campaign, there's only one who's like openly queer, and it's Shakira Richardson, which is great, and I'm so happy for her. And I love that, but I'm like, there's so much space for more, especially with the women's sports community being so queer, which I love. I mean, I'm a part of the community as well, so like I want to see that representation too. Um, yeah, I really wish I had an answer that had a bunch of brands that I could tell you all to go like watch their commercials of and say they're doing a great job. But unfortunately, right now they're just not. I think Candace Parker is a good example of kind of someone who toes the line a little bit. She's obviously a queer woman and is in a lot of stuff with Adidas or Under Armour. I think it's Adidas.
Adidas, yeah.
Adidas,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, Adidas.
And so I've loved seeing her stuff, but even she's more on the like stereotypical like feminine appearance side of things. So I would love to see um, athletes like I think of Kristen Bell is a great example of both of these is she may not be the most famous athlete of all time, but she's very mass presenting and that is fantastic. And I would just love to see more brands using people like her. Um, but that's a whole other thing that I kind of dive into in my paper is this whole idea that women and female athletes in particular have to have something else to their brand image. And so often that is appearance. And unfortunately, we still are a very, straight passing society. And like, that's the expectation that you have. As a woman, you have long hair and you are, you know, traditionally beautiful. But I would love to see more brands move away from that.
Even with the tunnel fits, like I know it's fun, everybody loves them, and they're fantastic. The people look great. Every player I talked to, I was talking about tunnel fits, but there seems to be a focus on kind of like your traditional femme presenting athletes who like really get there. But what I'd love to see in brand new, you look like there's a lot of jokes. I'm a big WNBA fan. That's what I follow the most closely. But you look down at Dallas, it's probably the biggest mask presenting team in the league right now. And then why somebody in Minnesota right now isn't doing something with Atisha Hydeman and Courtney Williams for the Stud Buds. There's a perfect way to do that right there. Especially you're talking about for queer athletes too. WNBA last time I checked is 38% queer and Black women. So like there's a lot that can be done there, and hopefully this is just the start of it as far as like moving in the right direction, especially for those in those communities in the LGBT in the queer communities and the mass presenting athletes. Overall though, which brands do you think are doing well? I know that was a question that you had in your survey, like, hey, who do you think is doing well and who really stands out to you?
I think, I think Nike is, and I'm not just saying this because I've studied so much Nike. Like I've always felt pretty strongly about their campaigns. I think they're definitely ahead of the curve when it comes to that whole success focus on athletes. Um, I think Adidas is doing a good job of pushing out that marketing with their female athletes. I know they've been doing a lot more with the WNBA. Like State Farm is doing a really good job. They are doing the less they're doing less marketing of female athletes and more marketing with female athletes, which I think is an interesting distinction. But like every time I see the Caitlin Clark logo commercial, I start laughing because it's just that funny. It's just like I wish I could do everything from the logo. And Jake from State Farm's like, I can help with that. And so they're like painting the State Farm logo at the dentist office or whatever. Um, so I think they're doing a good job. And then the other one that I think sticks out to me in terms of like marketing is CarMax. I mean, we talked about it a little bit with that Asia Sue and Sabrina commercial. It's so good. Um, so I think those are the brands that are doing the best job collectively at marketing with and around female athletes, but I still think there's room for improvement in those two.
Yeah, yeah, 100% there is. And yeah, thank you for correcting me on that. Asia and all that. I had the wrong brand there. I think I said State Farm for them, but no, no, that is Caitlin and Jake from State Farm, of course. Uh, Throughout the survey, you got to see all 117 responses. What was the biggest surprise or surprises to you whenever you were kind of combing through those and compiling that data?
So I think I asked a lot of like background questions to start, just kind of. So I wanted to see how many of these people I have filling it out were actually like watching sports, which is the vast majority of them. I think I had two people tell me they weren't sports fans, which was not shocking, which who I sent it out to. But I one of the questions I asked was, "What is one word you would use to describe this commercial?" And that was my favorite question because of all 100 and I think one person filled it out like 3 times, so it was like 114 unique responses or whatever. There were 98 people that used a generally positive word to describe the app, which is incredible. Um, and I expected to see the word inspirational used a lot more. It was only used 7 times, which was really cool to me. The most popular word was powerful, and that was 21. So it was used 3 times as many times as inspirational, and I loved that. And that question kind of was a really good sort of like theme for whatever people were answering for the rest of the questions I asked about the survey or about the commercial, and that was really cool to see like this theme carries through people's answers. I also had some people who hated it that filled out the survey. They hated the commercial. There was one person who called it trashy, and I kid you not, I laughed about it for like 5 minutes after I read it for the first time because I was like, I don't know how you get that, but I want to know how you get that. Like, please tell me more. Um, and that was really fun to see. Their answers were wild. My parents live in Texas, and they had said that some of their friends, and they're older, and so it was interesting to see the like kind of dichotomy between the like 18 to 24-year-olds that I mostly know and the like 55+ year olds for Texas. So yeah, yeah.
It, and some of those words that you said, like there's trashy, there's bland, there's off-putting, dissonant, punchy, overplayed, gritty. Like there's a lot. Badass really stands out to me, and I think you're gonna make this available eventually. But like I don't think you can see because I have my blur on. But yeah, a nice little word cloud within the presentation. Really, really well done, kind of highlighting all those, and it's really, really cool just seeing all that and the responses you get. But you also got to you had to present this in order to get your MBA, and like you worked with your advisor, you worked with the person with a pseudonym from Nike who worked on the campaign. What's some of the feedback that you got from people who have seen this?
So, all my friends, we did our presentations on like a Monday night, just like during our normal class hours, and I got to go first. I say I got to go first rather than I had to go first because at first I was terrified, and then I was like, wait, never mind, I just get to get it over with. And we also presented on my birthday, so that was kind of a wild time.
Damn.
But I got a lot of really positive reactions from it. We were really fortunate to get to have the class that's below us, the people who are graduating next year in our program, come listen to our presentations, and that was really cool. I was kind of There were people I had never really interacted with before who were so like locked into what I was saying, not just the fact that I was up in front of them talking, and like both men and women, which was really cool. I had a couple of them come up to me afterward and be like, "That was really awesome. I don't frequently say this about myself, but I'm really proud of the product that I came up with, because I put so much effort into it. And so I did feel like the feedback was genuinely really positive, which was really cool.
I love that. You could tell how excited you were and just how passionate you are about it, just from reading it, just from like you wanting to be like tease it and be like, I'm going to show you a little snippet. Okay, I can't hold this anymore. I have to show it. It was just fantastic. So so glad that everybody else kind of saw that too when you did that. I want to highlight a part in your research where you said, "quote Horizon Media reports that women sports fans are more likely to engage with brands than their male counterparts." Uh, my question kind of bouncing off of that is, do you think that there's a tie with that and the inclusivity and community that you go on to mention in that same section that women's sports fans have, making the fans kind of more trusting of that brand? Do you think
Oh,
there's that clear tie-in?
absolutely. I think I saw it even before I like finalized the survey. I had sent a message out in our Discord, that was just like, hey, what brands do you guys think are doing a good job versus like a bad job? And there was so many people who were saying, oh, like somebody said they thought Ally was doing a great job. And then like four other people would be like, yeah, I also think Ally is doing a great job. And I was like, great, I'd love to see that. Um, I definitely think there's a level of brand loyalty that comes from women's sports fans that is a little bit different, from men's sports fans because of that community side of things. Like, I think I've seen, when you go to like an MLB game, baseball game, or whatever, you see so many jerseys from so many different teams. But when you go to an NWSL game, most of the jerseys that you see are either U.S. Women's National Team or someone who's playing on one of those two teams. And I love to see that, because I feel like a part of it is that community and feeling welcome, that you are like, oh, I want to buy the jersey. I want to feel like I'm a part of this, in a different way than you do for men's sports, which I love.
Same here. And another thing that I love about that is the passage that you have that you mentioned earlier about that we're not here to inspire dreams campaign, here to live mine. The about opposing the idea of female athletes as role models. I think that's so great because you do go in there a lot. Like they have a lot that they have to do. They have to like present themselves a certain way. They have to go to functions unpaid and a lot of times just to kind of build up their brand and everything. But it feels like the tide is really shifting with it, where they're like, hey, it's important, like representation is important. It's important to inspire the next generation, but also I'm living my damn dream right now. So I'm doing this for me. So like, I love that you kind of already mentioned that at the beginning, that was kind of like what catapulted you into kind of doing this back in November and whatnot. But is that kind of like the first real like big campaign that you remember that really stood out to you as far as women's sports goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that and Nike's, which was a co-ed campaign, but the winning isn't for everyone from the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
That was another one that I absolutely loved that they did. Yeah, I think originally I had wanted my entire paper to be focused around this idea of female athletes as role models, but that just wasn't in the cards yet. Doesn't mean it won't ever be in the cards, but I still think about one article that I read talking about Hillary Knight, the hockey player, and Crystal Dunn, the soccer player, who were talking about how that was their inspiration. Like that was the reason they played. And I was like, you would never hear a male athlete say that. You would never. I mean, even like LeBron James and Steph Curry, who are two of the most like well-known male athletes that give back to their communities, would never in a million years say that they are playing basketball because they want to inspire little boys.
You're 100% right. 100% right. And yeah, you mentioned the Olympics one too. I believe you mentioned that in your paper as well. So like, yeah, it's just so fascinating. You touch on every single aspect here. And one of the aspects is something that I had a very heated conversation with somebody years ago where they're like, oh, like the WNBA, I think is like 4 or 5 years ago. WNBA doesn't draw any viewers, the typical trope argument that people always go down. I'm like, riddle me this: where are the networks placing them? Where are they playing their games? Where are their final games at? We know it wasn't until 2021 that the women could even use March Madness, and like the branding at all. So it took forever for them to even be able to give the position to be able to have a bigger audience. But now we're seeing, what we talked to somebody within our Discord, just like, hey, I'm starting to plan for this year. Where can I watch the AUSL games? Where can I watch the professional volleyball games? Where can I watch NWSL? Where can I watch WNBA? What channels? And we're like, well, if you want to watch WNBA, you have to have Ion, you have to have the WNBA app, you have to have ESPN, you have to have Amazon Prime. And it's like, wow, yes, it is very annoying that you have to have all these subscriptions and all these apps. We're also seeing kind of that investment into women's sports where these networks now are like giving them major TV deals and TV rights deal. I think WNBA's is like for $2 billion that they recently signed. So the quote that you pulled out there is my long way to getting around to this question, I promise, is that quote, more limited visibility than male counterparts. Absolutely true. And how big of a role does the investment in streaming platforms and traditional cable platforms prioritizing women's sports in key spots now play on that visibility?
Oh my gosh, it's like it is the biggest. I think it is the biggest hurdle for women's sports. Aside from paying our players more, which is that is way above my pay grade. So, I think that, as much as it can be annoying to have 19 different streaming services to watch all of my favorite sports, I would rather have to have 19 different streaming services and be able to watch every game than not be able to watch it all. I remember as a kid, I was a huge WNBA fan. I wanted to be in the like I wanted to play in the WNBA, and I was bad at basketball, so that's reminded it like but I stopped playing basketball and I stopped dating the WNBA because I didn't know where to watch it. I lived in Ohio at the time. There was no team near me. Like the Rockers had already folded by then, so there wasn't even a team in the state. And I lived in Cincinnati, so I kind of forgot it existed for a lot of years. And then in college, I really started to get back into it because I was putting in the effort to find out where to play, like where to watch and do all of that. And I really wonder like how my life would have been different if I had known how to watch, you know, I was a San Antonio Stars fan. Becky Hammond and the Stars were like my childhood. If I had been able to do that all through middle school and high school, would would I be in a different place now? Would like if that kind of makes sense. I think at the end of the day, it is the biggest hurdle for women's sports, and I love that we're starting to see media companies actually care and actually, you know, air games on cable. I love the Ion deal because that's great for everybody. You don't have to have any sort of paid anything to be able to watch those games. Like
Mhm.
the WNBA on Fridays and the NWSL on Saturdays. And what else do you need? Like it's perfect.
Yeah, it truly, truly is. And, accessibility is key in so many different areas, and especially with women's sports. This was holding back for so long because you talked to so many players. I chatted with Izzy Harrison last year, and it was just like the talent has always been here. It hasn't been the talent, it's been like the investment. And we're finally starting to see that. You see that with Unrivaled this past off season. And like after this season, they're already going to like make a profit, which is fantastic. I don't care about the bottom lines for billionaires and stuff like that. I don't, but it just says the like demand for women's sports. And it's not just like a blip on the radar. Like it's always been here, but now people are just starting to finally realize it. And you mentioned Ohio. I have to shout out our friends at the W Sports Bar. Of course, our friends in Ohio who hopefully are getting their Cleveland Rockers team back very, very soon. What can other brands learn about moving forward when investing in women's sports and kind of putting them at the forefront? I know you kind of got into the financials a little bit in there, but what kind of takeaways are there?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, right? Like I have a love-hate relationship with the argument of like women's sports is a good business opportunity. Because at the end of the day, yes, it is, but also I want people who actually care to invest in women's sports. Like it is a rising tide raises all ships sometimes situation, but also sometimes I'm like, if the ship that's rising the tide also in the whole in the hull, like we're not getting anywhere. Um, but I think you know there is a demonstrated like revenue opportunity there with the GIST actually just released a study that is more recent than the Horizon Media report that actually raised the like brand loyalty thing, and it says that women's sports or people are women's sports fans are 3.5 times more likely to buy something that is marketed by a female athlete. That is an insane statistic. Like
Mhm.
you don't see that type of um, demonstrated like return on investment in many places. That is like any other influencer you see on TikTok probably has like brand loyalty like maybe one. Like if we're going on a scale of 1 to 10, right? You've got women's sports fans for like a 4 or 5, which is crazy. Um, and then I think there is a whole other issue of brands committing to the social justice side of things. That is so important to the women's sports community. It's so important to most of the athletes. Um, and I think Nike's done a really good job with that. I talked about it for a little bit. There was the whole Colin Kaepernick thing in 2018. They made him the face of their Just Do It campaign. And people were like threatening to boycott Nike, but their stock price rose that day. And it was like a day that everyone else's stock prices were dropping. So it shows that people do want that. They just don't necessarily talk about it and like be out loud. They're like, I want a brand. Like I think of you as a good example. Like I want brands that commit to social justice, but I may not be the one like Twitter warrior and trying to claim like beg them to do it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you kind of brought up like you rather have people who don't just see it as a business opportunity, who actually care and are invested in it. And it's very especially now during Pride Month, like there's so many different places you're like, hey, get your Pride gear here, get your Pride gear here. It's like awesome, wonderful, love you're doing that. Where's that money going? What like what are you donating? What are you doing with these proceeds? Like what are you doing to kind of improve the lives of queer people whose rights are under attack right now? And it kind of has that parallel to women's sports too, right? Because we see a lot of brands like realizing, oh, this is the hot new thing. Let's try to get in on this. Let's try to get on this. Like the Cleveland deal, I think it was like $175 million what they try to pitch to bring a team back there. And it's like, okay, like great, Dan Gilbert, but is this just a money making thing for you? So how can we kind of trust that brands are genuine and not just being performative or kind of riding that trend?
That's such a tough one. I think right now we're in an era in women's sports where it's going to be really hard to tell the difference. Because it is for so many people like the beginning of their investment in women's sports. I think it's going to be, those brands that are sticking around in 5, 10 years. I worked with or for the Seattle Storm last year, and I was had an internship with them. And, we had brands that have been in our corporate partnerships group from the jump. Like our jersey sponsor, Providence, has been on the front of our jerseys for 8 and they were going to continue to be on the front of our jerseys for as long as they were willing to be. And so like brands like that, it's great to see. But I think that the like larger scale right now, unfortunately, is a lot of brands that we can't tell the difference quite yet. It's those brands that are investing in teams individually that I have more faith in. The ones that are saying, okay, I am go like I know Ring is a bit of a controversial company, but seeing them like fronting up the money to be on not one but two women's team jerseys, the Portland Thorns and Los Angeles, I think is a great step in the right direction. And again, don't love everything that Ring stands for. They're an Amazon company, and that's a whole other concern. But just it's so tough to see, like, to really decide if a brand is being legitimate or if they just want money. But I think we'll really start to see the good brands versus the bad brands.
Perfect. And we have reached one of my favorite parts of my interviews. It is the rapid fire round. So
Right.
I just go over some quick questions. You have no idea what's coming. It's across a bunch of different topics. And yeah, you can go as long or short as you want on them. All right.
All right, hit me with it. I'm ready.
All right. So you took a trip overseas this year, and I know you ordered a couple of kits that you had kind of mailed back. So you're obviously a big kit collector, big soccer fan. What's the favorite kit that you own?
I have a total of 38
Ooh,
across all sports, so not just soccer. I think my favorite right now, though, is my US Champion Equal Play jersey.
love that. Okay. Um, you talked about MLB a little bit earlier. If you had a walk-up song, what would it be? A walk-up song, so like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, as you're coming to the plate or you're coming out the pitch, they'll play like a 20-second snippet of a song each time you come up to bat. So what would yours be?
History of Man by Nikki Peters. I've thought about this
Okay.
a lot.
Oh, did you? Okay. Love that. Love that. Who is your first favorite athlete?
It was Becky Hammon. I wanted to be the next Becky Hammon when I was a kid. And my biggest regret is that I don't have a Becky Hammon Star jersey. So that is what I look for on eBay like once a month.
There is a fantastic website I will share with you offline that like legitimate too, not just kind of like stuff. So I will share that with you. And yeah, because I'm trying to find my original Teresa Weatherspoon jersey that I had with New York Liberty. She was my all-time favorite player. So I had it when I was a kid, and fortunately don't have it now, and I need that back in the worst way.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for each other there. We talked about music a little bit about a month ago. We had friend of the program, one of your one artist that you really like a lot, Marielle Craft, on Walking Bucket. So what's your favorite Marielle Craft song?
Oh, you're really getting me on this one. So I consider Marielle a friend now, and I had her out lyrics to oh my God, what's the song called? This is really embarrassing. Something Good.
I'm
For me to
good.
get so I think Something Good is my favorite song of hers right now.
Love
I'm really
that. Love
excited
that.
to see the new music though.
Cannot wait for the new music. She teased the new single. I think it's coming out next Friday, and the new album in September. Very looking forward to that a lot. I found out a lot of people like her, like who follow women's sports. So there we go. And which I'll ask for maybe two or three of each. I'll let you pick. Which
Okay.
WNBA players would make the best NWSL soccer players, and vice versa?
Oh, that is a good question. Oh, I mean, okay. I think Kelsey Plum would be a really good NWSL player. I don't have a like logical or reason for that. I just think that she would make a really good soccer player. And I think otherwise, there's a lot of like the taller players that would make good midfielders. Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm so now. I would be really curious to see a player. She's not taller, but a player like Skylar Diggins in the NWSL. I feel like she would be a beast on the field in the best way. And then okay, best NWSL players that make good basketball players. Taylor Flint with her height, I think she'd make a good basketball player. And then I think Trinity. I mean, no, I feel like that's a cop. I'm not gonna say Trinity. Her dad played basketball. That doesn't count. I do think she would make a good basketball player for other reasons than her genetics. But let's see. I'll go with a better one. I feel like maybe like Alyssa Mayer would be like a really good post player. Again, no reasons for that. Just I feel like it could work.
I could absolutely see all four of those. I think they're great picks. Dominique Malonga came to mind for me. I could just
Yep.
see her just like with her wingspan, with her stride, with her ability. Like I think she would be fantastic to watch.
She's
But
really fun to play live, to watch live. I've gotten to go to a couple Storm games this year, and she's really fun to watch live.
I saw you were there. Very, very jealous. I love Matt France team in general. So many players, and you got her and Gabby Williams up there in Seattle. So amazing. Can't wait for them to visit Atlanta, so I can see her too. And I have two more here for you.
All right.
So I know you're a big South Carolina Gamecocks fan for basketball. So we're gonna play a game of start, bench, and cut.
Oh, come on.
Asia
Okay.
Wilson, Asia Wilson, Aaliyah Boston, and Dawn Staley.
That's mean. Oh, that's so mean. Okay, I'm starting Asia. I think Asia is my favorite basketball player of all time. Like, no questions asked. I don't see how anyone could ever not start her. Between Dawn and Aaliyah. I think I gotta bench Dawn and cut Aaliyah. I'm sorry. I love Aaliyah Boston, but I just don't know how you say no to Dawn Staley and Aaliyah Wilson. Go ahead, do it.
You heard it here. I know what the headline of this article is going to be tomorrow. Campbell Burke does not like Aaliyah Boston. I am kidding. I am kidding. That is not true.
I've
That is
met
not
her.
true.
I've met Aaliyah Boston. I love Aaliyah Boston. She's a super sweetheart. I got to go to a event in Portland she was at for March Madness last year, and it's really cool. But I'm so sorry. I do have to cut her.
It's Dawn in Asia. I get it. I get it. And I had a feeling you're going to answer that with Asia. So you talked about her first shoe, the A1, selling out in under 5 minutes. There are four colorways out right now. If you can only pick one, all four available to you at the store, which one are you picking?
Oh, I'm getting the white ones, the pearl ones. I think those are the
Pearl.
ones I probably will end up getting them. I'm not gonna lie. But I think those. I actually almost went to my team ball the other day. Or not. But no, I think those are the ones that would go with the most things that I own. So that's go. But I do love the song. I mean, I got pink later on, but
With the
I
pink
got a new
blazer,
blazer.
I thought you might go with the new pink and black ones that kind of match that right there, because that's what I saw, and I was like, oh, that would be perfect, the perfect fit put together. I do have the all pink and the all blue ones. They are so great. They're such great shoes. So excited she has that, and so excited that we got to talk about your project and kind of go over everything. Campbell, thank you so much for joining and chatting with me. Is this going to be available anywhere eventually if people were able to kind of see for themselves?
Yes, it definitely will be. What that looks like right now, I don't know. We're still in the very early stages of getting it, properly published. But in the meantime, if anyone wants it, you can find me on Blue Sky or Discord, and I'd be happy to send it over to them to read. So,
Awesome. I was going to tell you to plug away, but you just did. So if people want to find Campbell on Blue Sky, be sure to. And thank you all for joining. Thank you, Campbell, for joining. And until next time, I love you, awesome nerds.
thanks for having me.